Mines and Money London 2025. Commodity TV here, live back in the beautiful town of Islington here in London. First day, first interview, and we want to dive full throttle into one of the hottest commodity sectors in recent times in the uranium sector. And with me here is Chris Frostad, the President and CEO of Purepoint Uranium. Hi, Chris, how are you?
Good morning. It's been I'm great. We're great. We're just getting our bearings here at the show. It's the first day, and things are getting set up quite well. So it's going to be a good week, I think.
Fine. Okay. So, Chris, since our last interview in March of this year in Toronto, Canada, you made a lot of progress with your company.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe let's start with Turner Lake. Long time on hold, but now you want to.
Yeah, it's been a tough year, I think, all over the place. What we've seen is that the equities have not been moving in the same direction as the commodity price. So as much upward pressure as we're seeing with uranium, and we're all quite happy to see uranium heading north. I think the market's a little more tepid in terms of jumping in to the equities that are involved in that. And one of the biggest issues we have in the exploration space, of course, we're an exploration company. Purepoint operates in northern Saskatchewan, where a lot of the world's uranium comes from. And what we've been seeing is that as we've been raising a lot of money to do a lot of work that's required out there, and it's very expensive, the commodity price hasn't been giving us the lifts we need, and as a result, we're seeing that a lot of the equities, and ours included, are getting a lot of downward pressure from the dilution that we're creating by raising a lot of money. And so that's I think going to continue to be a problem. And what we also know in Saskatchewan is that if we look back the last 20 years, there's been a lot of money spent, but those people that have found deposits and have brought resources into play have had to spend tens of millions of dollars before they actually got a discovery hole, let alone turned it into a resource. So, we've really been doing a lot of thinking about how that works for us and how we make sure that we've got the runway and the cash in a non-dilutive fashion to do that. And that's what we've been focused on this year, is getting ourselves set up for the next few years, because we think there's going to be a lot of squeeze in the uranium market and a lot of upward pressure on everything, and we want to be ready to take advantage of that. So, as you mentioned before, we just closed a deal with IsoEnergy. IsoEnergy is a developer that operates in the Americas, and actually they were the last deposit that was put together in Saskatchewan. And it was a magnificent deposit. It was the average grade was 45%, and so they're doing quite well. And what we did in that transaction is we took a lot of our larger projects, a lot of their larger projects, and we put them together into one joint venture. It's a 50-50 joint venture, and we've created a huge district right in the middle of Uranium Central in northern Saskatchewan.
100,000 hectares?
It's about 100,000 hectares. It's property that we've done a lot of work on. They've done a lot of work on theirs. And now as we put it together, it's creating quite a district, if you will. And what that did for us is it has now most of our projects are operating under joint ventures. And not joint ventures with just anybody. These are all developers, producers that have strong balance sheets, stronger than our own, and that gives us a few things. First of all, these are our best projects being advanced. We're not paying all the freight on an ongoing basis. We've got for every dollar we put in the ground now in those joint ventures, we only have to come up with 32 cents. So that assists us in getting these projects developed and moving forward. We've got names like Cameco, Orano, Foran Mining, and now IsoEnergy are our partners. They're very strong partners, and at the end of the day, we also operate all of these projects. So we are the exploration arm for all of these companies, and it puts us in a very good position to make sure that we've got the money and the resources to move these projects along and really make the discoveries that the world's looking for right now.
What are the concrete plans now for this joint venture? What are you planning for 2025?
Well, we just had our first technical committee meeting yesterday because, of course, the impetus is on us to come up with plans as to what we're going to do. We're going to be very, very busy next year. We're actually going to be doing, collectively on our joint ventures, we'll be doing about $10 million worth of work up in northern Saskatchewan. Again, we're only going to have to come up with about 3 million of that. So again, we will not be diluting ourselves in a heavy-duty way. The IsoEnergy joint venture, which we're now calling FireEye, the FireEye joint venture, which is 50-50, we'll be spending about $5 million on that next year. We will be doing a fair amount of drilling. So there's a lot of areas in there that are ready for drilling, drill testing, and we'll be moving forward on those. We'll also be starting in January. We're drilling at our Smart Lake project, which is our joint venture with Cameco.
Cameco, yeah.
We own 27% of that, and that starts in January. Even as we speak, we're now doing some geophysics over that area just before we get in there to really tighten up our targets. We're looking to get back to Hook Lake next year. It's always been a big project of ours with Cameco and Orano. We've got two priority targets out there. One we identified last winter, and our partners are very keen on getting back to there. And the other one is north of where NextGen Energy has been starting to make a second discovery in that area of theirs. And as they're drilling that off, we can see quite clearly that it's just on the other side of our claim line, and it trends right up onto our property. So our partners are very keen on getting to there as well.
At Russell South, you identified a couple of good areas, good targets.
Yeah. Russell South and Tabernor is another property down there that's 100% owned. And we've those are two on the eastern side of the basin. And they are, we're getting them ready for drilling. So we're doing a lot of geophysical work down there. Russell South, as you mentioned, we now have a handful of targets after the work we've done. We had 2 or 3 before, but we're getting far more discrete identifiers as we get close. Because, of course, you want to do as much of the geophysics as you can because it's a lot cheaper than poking a hole in the ground.
For sure.
So that's the route we like to take. So those both Russell South and Tabernor will be doing some more advancement on the geophysical side in the coming year, and they're going to be ready to start taking drills as well. So with all of these projects are in a good state where I think it's going to be now just continuous drilling to find the next one.
Let's come back to the Turner project. It was on hold for about 10 to 12 years.
Well, it wasn't. So Turner.
What's going on there?
What is up with Turner? Turner is actually in the middle of the joint venture we've now done with ISO.
Okay.
So it's actually a bit of the core that pulled it all together. It sits. There's a large granitic dome, if you will, that sits in the middle of the project, and the Laroque Trend, which is where their hurricane deposit that I mentioned before sits on, cuts right up and around and on top of our project, and then curves right around. So by putting all of these projects together, we've really picked up the entire area, and we can start inspecting it and exploring it, with a little more elbow room and a little more prospectivity.
Then you made a financing oversubscribed. That means people are really interested in the company.
And that was interesting as well. So we just did a consolidation of our shares, right? We've been around for a lot of years and have never done one. And the shares were getting a little fulsome. So we wanted to do that in conjunction with a transaction that made some sense. So we did that consolidation. We've now got about 57 million shares outstanding. And we did that in conjunction with this transaction with ISO. And we did a $2.2 million financing at the same time. Now, IsoEnergy picked up half of that. So they're now, that gives them exposure to our other projects. It kind of aligns us in terms of our objectives. And the other $1 million actually is put in quite strong hands. So the objective of the other $1 million was really to put it in the hands of a different investor base. So we're dealing with Tribeca out of Australia, Mega Uranium in Canada. Sprott was involved to a lesser degree, and let's see, who was the other one? Sachem Cove as well. So we've got strong uranium players now as investors, and that kind of gets us to a good place moving forward. Yeah.
And then I saw you also have a relationship with Foran Mining. They are building a mine at the moment. What is your relationship with them?
That was a bit of a side hustle. We did. It's in Saskatchewan. It was a property that we picked up a number of years ago that we knew was close to where they were looking to develop their project, and we hung on to it over the years. We did some work over there. It's a zinc copper project of theirs. And that McIlvenny Bay mine that they are now developing is really coming along. So as it was becoming more and more getting closer to a production state, and they were doing a lot more exploration in the area, that whole trend of what they were building there just comes right up and into our property. So we had done enough work on our side to identify that it was trending into the property, and they're now earning in on that. So they'll be spending about $9-10 million on that over the coming years. They just finished a detailed airborne study over it in September. I don't believe they've gotten the data back yet, so it hasn't been interpreted. But that's a project that, again, they're financing 100% moving forward, and we'll be able to participate as it moves along.
Okay. So at least let's come to the uranium sector itself, to the uranium price. A little bit tough at the moment. What are your feelings?
It has been coming off a bit, but it's interesting for a lot of years when it was sitting around 25-30 cents. We kept talking about it getting up to those incentive levels, which is where it's at now. However, we're still not seeing the lift in a lot of the equities. I think the basic thesis underlying uranium is still pretty simple. I think nuclear has become more and more popular. We're seeing a lot of countries not just building more, turning old ones back on, but countries that haven't been involved in nuclear are lifting moratoriums. Serbia did last week, and we're seeing others. So the demand sector is side of the equation is moving up. Supply, of course, is down, mainly because the last 10 years we were shutting off mines and turning things down when the price was down. And we now see that there's a supply gap, and it's simple math. It's demand up, supply down, price goes up. But what's been really making it even more distinct in terms of that gap is a lot of the geopolitical aspects of what's been going on lately. So we're seeing and a lot of the bifurcation actually in terms of where there's the products being allocated, because it is not a huge market. Niger, we had a coup there about a year and a half ago, and those mines, Orano's mines, been shut off, and product just isn't getting out of the country. I think it provides the EU with about 25% of its uranium fuel.
France has big problems now. Yeah,
France has got their big problems there. We're seeing the U.S. has now got a moratorium on uranium coming in from Russia.
Yeah.
Russia, it took them a long time. I don't know why it took them so long to turn around and say, yeah, well, we're not going to send you either. So they've got reciprocal problems going on there. We're seeing Kazakhstan has pretty much committed most of their product to China and Russia. And so it's really putting North America and the EU and Britain in a bit of a hold in terms of where they're going to get their fuel for these reactors that they're turning on. The United States, I think, produces domestically less than 1% of what they're consuming. And historically, they've been picking up half of their fuel from Russia and Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, and things are kind of getting shut off there. So they're definitely looking to Australia and Canada to fill that gap, but we're running at full steam trying to get things up to speed as well. So it's getting tighter and tighter, I think, as we move along, and I think we're going to see over the next 6 to 8 months. We're going to see it getting a lot tighter. So I think we're not going to see the hockey stick that we saw back in 2005, 2006 sort of thing. But I think it's just going to be a steady upward pressure on uranium prices, and they may wind up being two prices, an east and a west, because that's really how this is all being divided now. But it's going to be, we're looking at a very good year now, I think, in uranium. There's been a lot more attention being brought to nuclear these days. Right? In general, people are talking about SMRs and small modular reactors and micro reactors, and Microsoft and Amazon getting involved in it, and AI and actively, data centers, and quite frankly, how much that affects the uranium market, I don't know. Probably not as much as people would like to think, but what it does do is it gets the conversation going. So I think people are getting far more comfortable with the use of nuclear power and how it's used and the many ways it can be used, and that's good for everybody. Oh, good for us.
Okay. Chris, thank you very much for this insight in your company and also into the sector.
For sure.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Yes.
All the best for the next year.
Yes. And for the next week. It's going to be good here.
Keep all fingers crossed that everything will happen like we want to have it.
Absolutely. So, it always happens the way we want it to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris.
Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah, that was Chris Frostad, President and CEO of Purepoint Uranium, live here from the Mines and Money 2025 in London. Check out the company. Many progress in 2024, much more to come in 2025 with Cameco and all the other partners. Check out Purepoint Uranium, and bye-bye from London.